It's up to our own brains to interpret that information and convert it into our experience of enjoying the view. Indeed, there is nothing inherently pleasurable or painful about any event in the world that we see. It's all just light waves, all just electromagnetic radiation, which appears to mean that our brain has complete discretion over whether any event should be pleasant or unpleasant. The strange reality seems to be that our own brains must be deciding how much we enjoy our whole lives. Whether we live lives of utter delight or abject misery appears to depend entirely on however our own brains have been programmed. Let's go back to Dr. Ridley and let's imagine that while he's deliberating whether or not to go to Edinburgh, he falls into the hands of an evil scientist. The evil scientist gains access to Dr. Ridley's brain and finds a way to rewire his neural pathways so that she, the evil scientist, is in control of whether he feels good or bad about something. She could, for example, set up his brain so that he was terrified of the thought of going to Edinburgh, so that everything that was previously attractive about his proposed journey now filled him with dread and fear. Would he still go? Well, he'd be somewhat confused that the thought of the visit was now making him feel bad, but there would be no reason to put himself through the effort of the trip if he could only see pain and no gain coming from it. But here's the key bit. He would still feel like he was making his own decision. But in reality, he'd be doing precisely what the evil scientist told him to do. So who's the evil scientist in our brains? It's evolution. Now, what was I trying to convince you of? Oh yes, that you're a robot, like Arnie. The evil scientist is your genes, an algorithm running in your own brain. So that's how the illusion works. Our experience tells us that feeling good, feeling bad, pain and pleasure are inevitable consequences of things that happen in the outside world. So we live our lives battling to improve things that happen in the world around us in order that we experience pleasant emotions. But if pain and pleasure aren't the inevitable consequences of things in the outside world, if pain and pleasure are created by our own brains, then the thing that's creating that pain and pleasure is entirely in control of our conscious choices. We can imagine that we evolved from fairly simple life forms that weren't conscious, and then, as we become more sophisticated, a part appeared within our minds that had some sort of consciousness, vague, hazy, sporadic, the kind of consciousness that maybe a fish experiences. And there must have been some sort of advantage to this vaguely conscious brain. Maybe it could imagine future scenarios to help it decide, I wonder what happens if I do this. Will there be more chance of me catching some tasty prey? But that conscious mind would not evolve with an entirely new purpose, because if it did, if such an ability had arisen by chance, it would never have been selected for. Natural selection doesn't select things that do what they want. It only selects things that increase survival chances. Which means that the newly evolved conscious mind had to be under control of the thing that was already controlling the organism in the first place. And that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the mechanism by which our conscious minds know what they are supposed to be doing. We think of the conscious mind as being the higher part of the brain, the bit that's in control. And it does, of course, have an important function. It imagines stuff, it looks ahead, it peers into the future to see what happens if. But it doesn't then make the decisions. It says to the non-conscious mind, okay, these are the things that might happen in the future. Which path shall we choose? And the non-conscious mind makes the choice. If you want to get more into the idea of natural selection and the purpose of feelings, go to consciousrobots.com or check out the Slave to Our Genes video. My genes would like to thank your genes for watching to the end of this video.